Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I have to tell you that I am so excited about tonight's guest. I have been a fan of Constance Briggs for a very long time. I think she is one of the better writers in her genre, probably, period. Her research is impeccable. She goes to great lengths to get a lot of good information, as well as to disseminate it in a way that everyone can enjoy it. She has written 5 books, and they're all great. I love the topics. She's the author of the Encyclopedia of Angels, the Encyclopedia of God, the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries. She is on a roll. She has a new book, and I hope that we're going to get to talk about this one a lot too. It is, I bet we do, it is The Moon's Galactic History, a look at the moon's extraterrestrial past and its connection to Earth. It is on a topic that I just absolutely love. I am fascinated by the moon's history. I'm also fascinated by Constance. Constance, I'm so glad that you're here tonight. You know, we have both been fighting a battle to get here, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
It's never boring, is it?
No, it's never boring, but I really appreciate your efforts. Thank you for having me on, Kat. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm really enthused. It's been a long time since we spoke.
It has.
It has. And, one of the things that I think would be interesting to everyone is, in order to make an encyclopedia of anything, you have to do an awful lot of research. How long does it take you to get one of these encyclopedias put together?
So typically for the 3 encyclopedias, it took a year each.
Wow.
Yeah. But for some people that's short, some people as long as it depends on who you're talking to. But I have a lot of the angel stuff, for example, was just I love angels.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like a lot of that was just inside of me from years of reading and researching and talking to people about their experiences. So it took a year to put it together, but it was from way back that I had the idea and was throwing notes in files. So, but typically it takes a year for me to put an encyclopedia together. Yeah.
What made you decide on to focus on the moon? This is not your first moon book, and
nope.
I just think that, are you just fascinated? Like, do you watch it? Do you pay attention to it?
It's so funny. I would never have expected to be someone who's writing about the moon. Growing up, I was not interested, right?
Right.
It was not a girly thing. I wasn't interested in anything about astronauts. I could have cared less. I haven't been paying attention. Here I've written all of this information on them, and I can't believe I'm doing it. But the moon was something that, I've always had an interest in cosmic mysteries. I've always been a Trekkie for as far back as I can remember. I love the idea of outer space travel, and especially the idea that we are not alone in the universe. I believe that. And so in my metaphysical travels, in writing, you have a lot of information that comes across your desk, and some of it is unexpected. The moon was an unexpected gift to me, because one day I came across a book titled Our Mysterious Spaceship Moon. And it was written by a ufologist from the 1970s. His name was Don Wilson. And he also wrote a follow-up to The Secrets of Our Spaceship Moon. Anyway, so when I was reading this book because, like I said, I'm interested in whether or not we're alone in the universe, what's going on, cosmic mysteries. Well, this book really opened my eyes to the fact that there is a lot of strange things happening with our moon. And it opened my eyes to the fact that someone is perhaps on the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it was not something I had entertained. Like most people, we don't think about that. We're taught that the moon is a dead rock in the sky. It shines at night, lights up everything for us. It has this natural pull on our tides and, some other things going on, with our bodies. It affects that. But the fact that the moon might be a world was something that was news to me. So I began, reading this book, and then when I finished, I was just wowed, and I continued the research. And I went from it being a very interesting and perhaps fun topic to it being more serious. Because I learned in my research that we are not alone in the universe, according to, what's going on with the moon. There's someone up there, I think. Now, this is not a dictatorship. People don't have to believe me. This is my, it's just my idea, my opinion. And like I said, I'm a big Star Trek person, so I want to believe that there's someone out there. But the stories are so interesting. So the reason that I wrote the Moon Mysteries Encyclopedia was because I wanted to talk about the subject to people, and I thought it would be easier if people had a book where they could go from A to Z and look up topics, look up little articles. For example, they could look up the Apollo missions and what happened.
Yes.
Each of these missions are in this book. And what happened with the astronauts, which I hope we get into. I won't go there right now.
We will. I'm all about that.
An outline of the book. They could go to, the weird makeup of the moon, and they could look up the craters of the moon. And so basically it's a book full of mysteries. The mysteries meaning that many of the topics don't have answers, but they have many questions to go with them, and we have things to think about. Now, some of the topics do have answers. For example, let's say that there is an astronaut on the moon. There is a case where there's an astronaut on the moon, and there was a UFO hovering above him, and there is a picture. So There's no mystery as to if the astronaut really had a UFO above him. We could see the big light. The mystery is, who is it? What is that up there? Okay, so different kinds of mysteries, in the book. But so that's why I named it. I titled that because we don't have all of the answers, but if there are topics that we can think about.
My first exposure to the structures, and we're going to get to that, was an interview I did. Gosh, I don't even remember quite how long ago it was. I should probably call him again. But with a gentleman who shares your opinions. And in fact, y'all both write for the same publisher. But his name's Mike Vera. And he was the first person that actually sent me graphics supporting the structures on the moon. I had not seen those. And I have been a moon gazer my whole life. My grandmother, I had a grandmother, I had a grandma. My grandma, and I would sit outside and she was like, "Do you see the Madonna and Child?" And I said, "I do." And, what most people call the Man in the Moon, she thought looked like the famous painting of the Madonna with Child of Mary holding Jesus. And to me, that's always what it looks like because of that.
Oh, wow.
And so we grew up talking about, creation and everything developing the way that it was intended, even though we don't always understand things because we don't have the science and knowledge to back up to get there at that time for her to get there and see what's really there. That was during the Apollo era as we were starting to learn things. And
right.
It has always been a passion for me. And so when I started to go to, like Contact in the Desert and, alien cons where I could talk to people that were doing the engineering to get us there, to people who, actual science conferences where there are people who truly are still doing the work to get us farther out, people who have designed these satellites and stuff. It just has always amazed me. And if I do get to come back and do this whirl again, and I do think that we get a choice, I'm going to be a STEM student. I am going to be so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM.
Right.
It is.
Right. Well, sorry.
But just so I can be getting these answers myself, right? And I know that's your fascination too. It's like, oh my word, this is the coolest thing ever.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you would talk about coming back, because I believe that we have the choice. I believe, you know, that we are great beings, and we chose to come here, and we can return if we like. So I always say that I would like to come back, you know, for the space age.
Yes.
Because I think that we have reached a point where we need to start thinking about, seriously, you know, having that Star Trek future. Why should we be stagnated and standing still? And, you know, I mean, we're trying. You know, this country is trying. I think they're moving a little slowly for me. But the only way, though, getting back to the moon, the only way, you know, for us to move forward is to start having the conversations about, you know, what is going on in our solar system, in our galaxy, in our universe. And I think that, and I was surprised to learn that it is the moon that is the closest place, I think, to start. I feel like we did not get very far in our space travel in the 60s and 70s before we ran into someone out there. If you look at the Apollo 7 mission, guys, I mean, some people think that it was only Apollo 11. We had several space missions. Apollo 11, we landed the first astronauts on the moon, and we landed 12 men total on the moon. But there were missions that went up before Apollo 11 because they were preparing, you know, to go further. But they went, the first mission to go up saw a spaceship that has been likened to an angelic being, a butterfly. It was white, and it looked like it had these kind of wings moving out. It was very oddly shaped. It was not a saucer. But the astronauts took a picture of this thing. And I just felt like that was their first time going out there, and they saw something immediately. And if you're going to see one, then guess what, Kat? There's probably lots more around, right?
You know,
and
that's a
so
fact.
I think
You've
that we have
it.
been neglecting the moon. We have been neglecting a great source of information for us to learn about, you know, our own history, our history with the moon, who's out there, and what in the heck is going on the moon. So one of the interesting things for me that shocked me was that they don't know the origin of the moon. Did you grow up thinking that the scientists knew how the moon, you know, was made? I thought they knew. I grew up thinking that the moon had been captured in Earth's gravity, and that's how it became positioned where it is. But that's not the case at all. In fact, they've had 5 theories of how the moon came to be, and they have discounted them all. The last one being the giant impact theory.
Exactly.
This is the latest and greatest one, where they said that the moon was hit by a planet the size of Mars. They called this planet Theia.
Yes.
They said that this planet smacked into Earth, and that Earth's, elements flew out into space, you know, and it eventually circled and formed the moon over time. And so that was the last theory, but they have discounted it too. And if you go on NASA's website, it says, you know, we think, and we're seeing this in fact, I'm not quoting them exactly, but they were pretty much saying we think this could be the way that it was created. So they're not committed to that.
Well,
either.
and don't you find that so odd?
How
because
the moon was created, where the moon came from.
And they think that they know everything.
In itself to be fascinating and disappointing, because I thought I knew something. Growing up, I thought I had this down. And it's not true. So, yeah, that was one of the things that, just really made me stop and think. I may have shared this quote before on your show, but I really love it because Isaac Asimov, the American author, he's the world's most prolific writer. He specialized in science, and he was a popular science fiction writer. But anyway, he was blown away by the size of the moon, and he was trying to understand how the moon came to be here too. So he said, one of my favorite quotes is, "What in blazes is our moon doing way out there? It's too far out to be a true satellite of Earth. It's too big to have been captured by the Earth. The chances of such a capture having been effected and the moon then having taken up in a nearly circular orbit about the Earth are too small to make such an eventuality credible."
Exactly.
But then, if the moon is neither a true satellite of the Earth nor a captured one, what is it? So he pretty much echoes what I, was. Sorry?
We're going to have to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk more about that because he's one of my favorite authors too. So we'll be right back. I'll come back after this. This is so much fun. Y'all just come on back.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? Well, you see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watched a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. And I have to tell you that I am so glad to be here tonight. And I'm just really fortunate, I think, that I get to talk to such cool people But Constance Briggs is my guest tonight, and we are talking about all things lunar right now because we both have fascination with the moon. We're both still at our age budding astrologers and astronomers, and we both have had a fascination with this since Star Trek, and I am still one of the biggest Star Trek fans on the planet, and I think you are too, Constance. So
I know that I am.
well, I have to do a shout out because my grandmother had a next door neighbor, and the child of that family's name was Lee Shackelford, and he was the biggest trekker before trekker was a term. You know, he had an Apollo lunar tent, and we just had the best time when I would go over there. But he is who turned me on to the science side of the moon. And between my grandma and this guy, who actually wound up, believe it or not, being one of my daughter's college professors, you know, it's just such a small world, but there's so many big questions. It's just cool.
There's so many big questions. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many big questions, but I do think that, you know, maybe I'm in a bit of a hurry, but I think that we need to, you know, in this world, you know, get to talking about them more, and trying to find answers to things, you know, and so that's why I've been talking so much about the moon. I mean, I did write the 2 books, and you know, it has, these 2 books really have taken over my life in the last couple of years, but I find that people are interested, you know, in these topics because they want to know. I think we've progressed from just being, you know, drones in this world and going about our lives to really, you know, asking the questions of, you know, what's going on in this universe? Where did we come from? What are all these strange, you know, things about? What are those things in the sky? They're calling UFOs. How many people are seeing UFOs now? Where are they coming from? I have a theory that quite possibly some of them may be coming from the moon, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
so
agree with that.
I was talking before the commercial break. I had mentioned Isaac Asimov, not understanding or saying, you know, it can't be explained what we're looking at, guys. We're not looking at something that is just a dead rock in the sky. This thing may be unnatural. It may not be a natural satellite, meaning, you know, there's a theory that the moon was, you know, actually brought here. William Hartmann, a planetary scientist who, you know, his work was, you know, very well known, and he wrote a popular book called The Origin of the Moon. You know, he basically was echoing the idea that some have, that with all the money, all the effort, time, and even lives lost, you know, by the astronauts in trying to figure out the moon, we still have more questions than you know, than we do answers. So I wanted to share one of my other favorite quotes.
Oh,
William Hartmann said, "Neither the Apollo astronauts, the lunar vehicles, nor all the king's horses and all the king's men could assemble enough data to explain the circumstances of the moon's birth." Meaning, we don't know what it is. And that's crazy because we went there to study it and we came back with more questions. But, you know, it reminded me, and I have this in my second book, it reminded me of a Star Trek show. One of the things that people liked about this second book is that I do put some science fiction scenarios in there because they're just fun to do. And, you know, you can imagine a little better, right? So if you're a Star Trek fan, I've got a quote there from Data in Star Trek The Next Generation, because the moon reminded me of this. So there's a point where Captain Picard of Star Trek is talking to Data, who is an android scientist for the crew, and he's asking Data to, Data, who knows all, to tell him what this thing is they're looking at out there in space on their screen. And Data can't answer it. And Data tells the captain, he says, the beginning of wisdom is, I do not know. I do not know what that is. So,
yes,
when we look at the moon, this is pretty much as far as they have gotten in answering the question, what is it? We don't know. We sent men up there. We don't know. So getting back to Don Wilson and his theory, the spaceship moon theory, it sounds so far-fetched to people, but it seems to be one of the only explanations that we have when it comes to the strange things on the moon. Strange things such as lunar transient phenomena. That is a term for strange lights that have been witnessed on the moon. All right? So, Pat, please remind me to get back to that.
We will.
Structures on the moon.
That's the topic I like.
All right, structures on the moon. If the moon is a spaceship, perhaps that could explain the strange lighting and the structures. So we sent these astronauts up there to get the answers, and they came back with a whole bunch of interesting things, like about the moon that we didn't know. Interesting, meaning that they brought back rocks and lunar dust and things that we didn't know about. And they came and, where was I going? So the astronauts brought back bags of stuff they took from the lunar surface that gave us more questions. So they looked at so there are two scientists. Where was I going?
That's okay.
So
we got time.
There were two scientists. Oh, the spaceship moon theory. Sorry, everybody. There were two scientists who had the same theory about the moon as Don Wilson, who wrote the Moon Mystery spacecraft book. And not Moon Mysteries, but it's the Moon of Spacecraft and Secrets of Our Spaceship. So the scientists looked at what the Apollo astronauts brought back. And they said, the surface, what we can tell, is made up of all of these elements that are really hard. Elements that you don't find in nature like that. It looks like, somebody created this thing to be able to withstand radiation and heat and being bombarded by meteorites. If they were going to create the hull of something and make it strong, they would have used, the elements which included chromium, titanium, zirconium, and some other elements. They said that's what someone would have used if they wanted to make something really hard. And these scientists also, these were Soviet scientists who worked for the Soviet government, who had to put their reputations on the line by coming out with these statements. They wrote a whole paper. And they said, wow, look at this. The astronauts learned that when a meteor hits the moon, it's only 2.5 miles thick, pretty much. All of them are the same. No matter how hard that impact is, all of the craters are about the same depth.
Isn't that amazing?
These scientists said that is really strange. And then another thing that these Soviet scientists looked at was the fact that when the Apollo astronauts sent their ascent stage they crashed it into the moon. They did this a couple of times in a couple of missions. The moon, they said, rang like a bell. Well, of course,
yes.
It didn't really ring like a bell. It reverberated, right?
It did.
So these scientists, now I was going somewhere with this long-winded story. These scientists basically concluded that the moon is a spaceship, just like Don Wilson had written about. They also said that the moon, they think, is a spaceship. They said there's no way that it's natural. A natural satellites should not be reverberating. All right? And here's a quote from them. These scientists said, it is more likely that what we have here is a very ancient spaceship, the interior of which was filled with fuel for the engines, materials and appliances for repair work, navigation instruments, observation equipment, and all manner of machinery. In other words, everything necessary to enable it to serve as a Noah's Ark of intelligence, perhaps even as a home of a whole civilization with the idea of a prolonged, perhaps thousands of millions of years existence and long wanderings through space. So these two men came forward with this theory. And that's how, when you hear about the spaceship moon theory, they are two of the primary advocates of that. And, people said, that's really interesting. So basically, Kat, what they're saying is we may have a civilization on the moon or inside of the moon or both. Now, that would explain, of course, structures on the moon. And
but would they have come out to build the structures? If they were having to live on the interior, would they have the ability to be out on it?
Why not? Like, they could. We don't know.
I mean, we do spacewalks.
That's right. And we do not know the capabilities of an extraterrestrial.
Nope.
Our scientists said, this is what was confusing. If you go back to the 1600s, from the time the telescope was created, astronomers were seeing things moving around up there. They were seeing they called them strange lights.
Yes.
All right. And they called them objects moving, and they said there was fog and mist up there. All right. So I don't know that they had any inclination of a spaceship, but they were saying they saw strange lights. Today, we would say UFOs. And they weren't just seeing, a light here and there. They were seeing them all over the place. They were seeing them in the craters, different shapes and sizes, in geometric shapes, different colors, sometimes for 15 minutes, sometimes a couple of hours, sometimes even during a lunar eclipse. There were ships moving around up there. So today, when we talk about the spaceship moon theory, and if you listen to some of astronomers today, I've seen some films that look like things are coming out of the crevices of the moon, of large holes in the moon, and flying out. And I think, where the heck are they going? Those are UFOs. Where are they going? Are they coming to Earth? Or is there a civilization there that is so technologically advanced that they can, they've got spaceships inside of the moon? Did they really come across the universe and place the moon in Earth's orbit? And, there was a couple of pictures I've seen that look like fleets of UFOs.
Yes, I have
Where are
seen...
they going?
Mm-hmm.
Where are they going? So interestingly enough, that spaceship moon theory, there was a South African tribe named the Zulu people, who, in their myths, they said that they believed the moon, likened it to an egg. They believed that this moon, this egg, was hollowed out, or the yolk was hollowed out, and by two brothers, of course, extraterrestrials, and that these extraterrestrials sent this egg across the universe and placed it in Earth's orbit. That's their tale. And it sounds so interesting to me because it sounds like what the Soviets are saying and Don Wilson is saying. And there's two gentlemen who wrote a book titled Who Built the Moon, who also, of course, has that same theory.
Yes.
So it's looking more like our moon may not be natural, and it was brought here. And if I just can carry on just for a little bit longer with one more tale,
yes.
There is a story out of Bolivia, and of a sun gate, an artifact, and it's megalith that weighs tons. But on this thing, there's a doorway, and on this doorway, it has ancient symbols. And the story from the symbols said that the moon came in. All right, the moon came in, and when it came in to our orbit, it created havoc on the Earth, causing different storms and, all of these, storms and earthquakes and problems for Earth. So there is that story that tells us that the moon wasn't always in the sky. In fact, there are, along with those lines, there are philosophers and writers from ancient times that talk about a time when there was no moon in the sky, that Venus was the object that shined the brightest. It goes right along with all of this information about a spaceship moon theory or about a unnatural satellite theory that and the Sungate story. They talk about a time where there were people on the Earth, but they were running wild, that there was no sophistication and culture about them. And if you look at all of that, that's to me, it's a kind of an evidence that tells us that moon may not be anything like what we think or thought it was.
Well, it's something that if you don't do the research, if you haven't read, if you haven't, very few people will have to your level, okay? But there's a lot of information that if you just go out and look, and it doesn't have to have an adverse effect on creationism, or because everything stemmed from somewhere. But just because people question like moon origins and stuff like that, it's not unrealistic, because nothing about the moon is natural, as far as like you were talking about the composite and the histories that go back and question when it showed up. But when we come back from this break, we are going to get to more of that, because I love this conversation. And in chat, the comment is that you're so positive and you have some great observations. Well, yeah, you do. So we'll be right back with Constance Briggs, and we're going to talk more about her work and what she's found, as we have been. Y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I'm so pleased that you get to be here tonight and enjoy my guest, Constance Briggs. She is a prolific author. She does impeccable research. She has 5 great books, and as you can tell from this conversation, when I say that she has put together encyclopedias, she is an encyclopedia on topics that fascinate her. And, you know, Constance, I am so excited to have you back because I love your enthusiasm for this topic and your willingness to share so freely. You have researched two massive volumes of information on this topic, the moon. And you know, something that you haven't talked about is, you know, the moon music, the space music. And
yeah,
I find that interesting. Is that going to be something that we can get to before the top of the hour, or do we need to wait until the second hour to get to that?
Well, you know what, we can jump around, and I mean, I've got a couple of things that I want to talk about, but I can just talk about that really quickly right now, if you like.
Well, I just find that fascinating. Sure, I just find that fascinating. What did it sound like? Have you heard it?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like music, I have to tell you. It sounds, I mean, you know, it didn't have a beat. It was
you couldn't dance to it. Okay.
No, I mean, from what I heard it a long time ago, and it just sounded like, you know, kind of static to me. Nothing that I could, you know, I wouldn't have used the term music. I think that was not a good idea to, you know, for it to term it. I would have said, oh, we're hearing and it was the astronauts that said it. I would have just said,
I have heard
you know,
that.
Oh, we hear it.
I have heard a recording. I've heard a recording of that. I thought it was something different.
Oh, okay.
The sounds of space. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was something different. No, that was different. That was not. I've heard the sounds of space. That was, they have recorded like what it would sound like if we could hear Venus and Saturn's rings and stuff. That was different than what the astronauts heard. All right. So basically, the astronauts in Apollo 10 heard strange sounds when they were orbiting the moon, and they referred to it as space music. So what happened? For the first time, the astronauts went to the far side. They orbited the whole moon, and they went to that far side, and then they were out of earshot. They were out of touch with mission control below for about an hour, which is just unheard of. And, you know, kind of, you know, in my opinion, a little bit dangerous when you lose track of the astronauts. All right. So when the astronauts went behind the moon that first time, as they were orbiting, they heard something strange. And they shouldn't have been hearing anything.
True.
Not if the moon is, if there's nothing on the moon, right? So they're hearing this strange staticky noise, and they use the term go woo, 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 or something like that in their diet, because you know what? They record everything that the astronauts did up there, right? So you have the transcript of what they're saying, and then they used to like W-O-O-O and woo, O-O-O in the transcript to say, and they're saying to each other, "Did you hear that?" And the other one's saying, "Yeah." They say, "Oh, that's like weird space music." So yeah, I heard it. And so they're talking about it. Said nobody's going to believe it, and they're like, "Yeah, nobody. Should we tell them?" And they're like, "No, we shouldn't tell them." Now, why wouldn't they want to tell them? Because, you know, they would have probably said, you guys are crazy, and, you know, pulled them from their assignment or something. They were worried about the job.
Them continue.
So they didn't say, right? So they didn't say anything. They found this tape, like, this transcript and the tape, like, in a drawer somewhere, I understand, like 40 years later or something like that. So, yeah, anyway, so they heard something while they were on the other side. Now, experts, well, I shouldn't say experts, I should say in the media, somebody was saying, giving their opinion as to what this might have been. And they said, oh, maybe they heard the radios making static and, talking to each other, or by accident, the radio system or something. But there's someone else that argued, no, these are like top of the line, smart men who are trained for every situation. They know the difference between radio static and something strange, all right? And especially if they were trying to hide it, because they were worried that they would, be questioned about, and their jobs might be at stake. So that's a story that I have on the strange space music.
Mm-hmm.
They heard something, and it wasn't the only strange thing that the astronauts heard out there. One of the astronauts, I can't remember now which mission it was, but, there was always one astronaut in the command module while two astronauts were on the moon. Right. One of them heard a language, a strange language. And that's in the Moon Mysteries book. I can't remember the name of the astronaut, but he said he heard he heard the language. It was recorded, and it was brought back to Mission Control, and they tried to interpret what was being said, and they couldn't. They didn't, they couldn't interpret it. There was no language. It was not a language they'd ever heard before on Earth. So it's not only do we have the space music, but we have this strange transmission of weird language. And that wasn't the first time either that a weird language had been heard. It also occurred during a Mercury mission. So there were Gemini missions and Mercury missions before the Apollo missions. As you know, they're getting ready eventually to put men on the moon. They had to start somewhere. So, the Mercury missions, they were, going up there. They weren't going that far up there. They were still, in Earth's atmosphere and all this. But they heard one of the astronauts, I wish I could read. There's so many astronauts, guys. So I guess I'm a little confused. But, no, one of them heard also a language. So it wasn't the first time, when they went up, the Apollo astronauts heard weird music that they called it music, a strange language, and also someone on a Mercury mission heard a strange language. And that one was leaked to the French press and played in France by accident. Oh, yeah. Just very interesting stuff.
You can tell I haven't gotten far enough through all this. I'm just I get excited when I'm reading it, and I go back and I'm cross-referencing as I go. So I love your work. That is astounding that the French got it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And,
well,
I was just going to say that we don't really realize, I think, that we think that we are the people, right? As far as space exploration, space research and such. But, Jacques Vallée, who has been one of the most intrinsic parts of ufology, astronaut theories, just basic love of space, to the degree that Steven Spielberg created a character based on him for Close Encounters, and then he was in the film. But there are people outside of the U.S. who are just as mesmerized by this as we are. People tend to forget that sometimes.
Oh, yeah. No, there are we have MUFON here. There are the equivalent of that in other areas of the world, of people who are, studying space and that are, recording experiences from people. So no, it's not just us. It's not just us. In fact, I think that, some of the countries more than others are seeing UFOs more than we are. For example, I know that Mexico has a whole lot of sightings.
Oh, yes. And Chile also.
Recording things all the time. Even the Ukraine during this war, did you hear that the Ukraine has been having strange lights in the sky and UFOs in the sky?
Yes, and I think that
And
is a direct result of the weaponry being used and the fact that civilians are being targeted. I
right,
think that the absolute
exactly.
brutality of what's happening is just like the Nazis with the Foo Fighters and stuff. The actual
Yeah,
brutality of man to man, I think, shocks the sensibilities of other travelers who are just, yeah, they're here to look at the barbarians, kind of, you know. I mean,
yeah.
anytime that there's something of great, it's just like around Fukushima. There's been activity around that. I mean, anything that is catastrophic to our world seems to draw attention.
I agree.
And all
I
of these
agree.
things are. I think they're just shocked that we can be as much of a bunch of putzes as we are to each other.
I think they're shocked, and from what I understand, there's a story about. I'm sure you've heard it, that one or two of the presidents were approached by extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And the story is that the extraterrestrials are concerned about us blowing up all life, killing life on this planet, and they were saying that they weren't going to let us kill off all life on this planet. They're not going to they don't want us to use the nuclear weaponry, and that could have a domino effect into the galaxy for
Yes.
others. So yeah, I believe that they are watching us. And in fact, I'm working on a new book, and I'm putting some of this information in there. So when I was doing this research on the moon, well, one thing that was very interesting is that all of the Apollo astronauts were followed by UFOs or strange lights, and of course, the strange lights were UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they could see that they were they could see the ships. Other times they saw bright lights. In one case, one of the missions, let's see, I can't remember. Let's see. Apollo 8, yeah, Apollo 8, on their way up, they didn't go all the way to the moon, but it's one of those what I call the practice runs as they were getting ready
Yes.
for Apollo 11. The astronauts were astonished to witness a fast-moving, circular-shaped UFO that emanated a light that was so bright and powerful they could barely see within the craft. As the UFO passed their capsule pitched and yawed, causing the astronauts to nearly lose control of the vehicle. All right. Apollo 9, I'm reading from my book here. On March 10th, 1969, the crew had an unusual sighting. There were large, mysterious, cylindrical-shaped objects crossing the moon. The astronauts photographed them. And there are others where there were UFOs outside of the missions. I think it was Apollo 17 where they were taken off, and there were two ships following them. As they were, as they were going into space, they were very clear. So my point in bringing this up is that we are being watched. We are being watched, yes, because of the nuclear weaponry, and they don't want us killing off all the life on this, glorious planet. And so they're here, and they were watching the Apollo missions. They knew they were on their way to the moon. There is a rumor. Well, I think we're past the state of rumor. There was this in my Moon Mysteries book I talked about where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had landed, and it was reported that they had seen ships lined up on the edge of a crater.
Yes.
All right, but I have moved on past that, because when I first heard that story, I heard that some people had picked up on their radios the transmission. It was a secret transmission that Armstrong supposedly had made with Mission Control so that the audience back home couldn't hear it, that they were seeing spaceships there, all right?
Yep.
But
and the ham radio operators are who were getting that.
Right.
Ham radio operators are monitoring them.
Right. That's what I had heard, and I thought, when I first heard that story, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not sure that that's real, but it is a mystery. We don't know if it's real, so it's going to be a mystery. But then I learned about a gentleman named Christopher Kraft, who was an aerospace engineer. He worked as a director of the NASA tracking base in Houston during the Apollo program, and he worked very closely with Apollo 11. He has been referred to as the legendary founder of NASA's Mission Control. So this is from my book. After leaving NASA, Kraft recounted what happened on the moon with the Apollo 11 astronauts. And so then I have the dialogue here of what he said, in my book, where the astronauts were saying to Mission Control, those are giant things. Oh, no, this is not an optical illusion. No one is going to believe this. And then, Mission Control is asking, what the heck is going on? And they said they're here on the surface. And Mission Control is saying, what's there? And the astronauts were, Neil Armstrong is saying, we saw visitors. They were there for a while observing the instruments. And Kraft said that, Mission Control said, repeat that last information. And the astronaut said, I say that there were other spaceships that lined up on the other side of the crater. Now, this is said to have come from Christopher Kraft, who worked very closely with the Apollo 11 astronauts. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that, if you can't trust Christopher Kraft, then who can you trust to be telling the story, to be telling the truth, right? So that's a thing. And,
okay. I am going to have to interrupt you because we have to do our top of the hour break. But, guys, we will be right back. And y'all come back too. I know that y'all are enjoying this as much as I am. So just hang with us and we will be right back.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. As Navy divers work to recover debris from the alleged Chinese surveillance balloon that the military shot down off the coast of South Carolina yesterday, lawmakers are divided along party lines on whether the Biden administration should have waited so long to take action. President Biden says he gave the order to shoot down the balloon last Wednesday when it was safe, and the military said it had to be over water. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
The bottom line here is that shooting down the surveillance balloon over water wasn't just the safest option, but it was the one that maximized our intelligence payload.
Republican Senator Tom Cotton chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee.
I think part of it is the president's reluctance to take any action that would be viewed as provocative or confrontational towards the Chinese communists. I would say what's provocative and confrontational is sending a spy balloon all across America.
Cotton speaking there on Fox News. Iran's supreme leader is granting amnesty for tens of thousands of prisoners, including some who were detained in recent anti-government protests. But as NPR's Aya Batrawi reports, the pardons exclude many.
State media says Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei's pardon of detainees will not include people convicted of murder, destruction of public facilities, espionage, or contact with foreign intelligence services. The government has framed the anti-government protests as an attempt by Iran's enemies to destabilize the country. State media did not say how many protesters are among those being granted reduced sentences or pardons. Rights groups say hundreds have been killed in the crackdown. 4 have been executed. The protests erupted after the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who had been arrested by the country's morality police in September. Aya Batrawi, NPR News, Dubai.
Florida lawmakers start a special legislative session tomorrow to finalize a plan to strip the Walt Disney Company of its self-governing powers. Kathy Carter from member station WUSF reports the governor targeted Disney last year after it opposed the state's parental rights and education legislation.
Florida lawmakers voted last year to dissolve Walt Disney World's special taxing district, but they are now likely to approve a state board to oversee it instead. The special district, known as Reedy Creek, allows Disney to act with the same authority as a county government. The company was granted the special status more than 50 years ago when Orlando's biggest attraction was its orange groves. Governor Ron DeSantis continued his feud with Florida's largest employer last week when he said the state was not going to let a corporation control its own government. Among the unresolved issues is what will happen to Disney's more than $1 billion bond debt. For NPR News, I'm Kathy Carter in Tampa.
U.S. futures contracts are trading lower at this hour. You're listening to NPR News. Singer Beyoncé could make history at tonight's Grammy Awards. NPR's Mondelita Del Barco reports on the 65th annual ceremony taking place in Los Angeles.
Beyoncé has 9 Grammy nominations, one for her song Be Alive from the film King Richard.
So when we will have pride.
The other nominations are for songs from Renaissance, which is up for Album of the Year.
You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul.
If she wins at least 4, Beyoncé will become the artist with the most Grammys ever. For the first time, the ceremony will honor poetry albums and video game soundtracks and 50 years of hip-hop. Mondelita Del Barco, NPR News.
At the weekend box office, after 7 weeks in the top spot, Avatar, The Way of Water, was knocked out of the lead as the M. Night Shyamalan thriller Knock at the Cabin opened with an estimated $14 million in ticket sales. That movie had a reported production budget of just $20 million. In second place, 80 for Brady, a comedy about 4 friends, Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Rita Moreno, and Sally Field, who take a trip to the 2017 Super Bowl. It opened with an estimated $12 million. Avatar, The Way of Water slid to third place with $10 million domestically. Worldwide, that film has taken in more than $2 billion, making it the 4th highest grossing film of all time. I'm Janine Herbst, and you're listening to NPR News from Washington.
On the podcast Rough Translation, a young doctor gets a request from Ukraine.
They're urgently looking for abortion pills.
But delivering the pills means skirting the law.
We weren't really sure who to trust.
A wartime mission in a legal gray zone. That's on the NPR podcast, Rough Translation.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. And I know that all of y'all have been sending strength and prayers and healing energy to our fearless leader, Phyllis, who is one of the most spectacular humans I've ever met. And thank you for that. And if you would like to check out fatemag.com, you will find the magazines. If you need an archive when she is back and doing her thing, she will be getting all of that up. But you can look at the orders. You can renew your subscription if somehow that thing lapsed. That could never happen, right? But just to keep on keeping on. But you'll love it. There's books, there's articles, there's everything. Check it out. fatemag.com. And my guest tonight is Constance Briggs, and we have been talking all things lunar, actually, because it could have something to do with this nifty new book she has out, The Moon's Galactic History, and the look at the moon's extraterrestrial past and its connection to Earth. And Constance, we've been talking about all these things because we are both geeks for this stuff. I know that, and you know that. It's just a constant fascination. But something we really have been talking about is the things that people are seeing and experiencing and really interacting with on the moon. And something that we really haven't brought out is its connection to Earth. Yeah, we talked about the Foo Fighters, monitoring the Nazis. We talked about I guess today's equivalent of the Foo Fighters monitoring the Ukrainian situation, because we haven't had that level of violence and a conflict since probably Vietnam, as far as that level of violence and death. I think that probably this, for the actual active and intentional targeting of civilians, children, daycares, schools, this probably has to be one of the worst things since Germany. And, do you think that this crazy activity that they're talking about, the upsurge of it, is because we're shocking them?
Shocking them? Oh, I see. I think that we are shocking them. And I think that they are concerned, as I said earlier, about us, killing each other off, killing all life on the planet, and it, reverberating, having a domino effect into the galaxy. There is a very interesting theory, and some people would say prophecy. I don't get into that much, and I've never talked about this before. I usually stick to the moon stuff, but, there is information out there that says that there may come a time that we will nearly kill all of ourselves, and that the extraterrestrials will be waiting to lift survivors off of what may end up being an apocalyptic Earth to preserve some of the species here on Earth. When I hear that question, that's what comes to my mind. Could that prophecy, be true? Could they be keeping an eye out and waiting out there for having to lift, various life forms, off of planet Earth, because there has been an uptick.
Yes. I just wanted to share with you, we were talking during the news break about a guest that I had recently had on, and she had brought up that, and it's in the book that she wrote with Preston Dennett, and of course I'm talking about Doris, but she said that they train, pilots train to do an airlift, an emergency airlift, and she made the comment that if you saw a craft land and someone telling you to get on it, you better get on it, because it's over.
Yeah.
So that would feed into that. And I find that so, I have to tell you that that's almost a little unnerving, but fascinating. And because I absolutely am convinced that her experiences are exactly what she says they are. So, and I have reasons for believing her. But it's just really an interesting thing to me that what you're talking about in prophecy is what this person is talking about in practicality. She has participated in that, she said, in other systems.
The saying is that truth can be stranger than fiction.
I find that to be the case in my work all the time. I agree.
Yeah. We just don't really know everything. We have not been educated about enough to for people to take this seriously, I think.
Well, it's been
and there's
poo-pooed to protect people, to protect governments, to protect whoever. And so it's been mocked. And it's starting to appear that probably shouldn't have been.
Yeah. We need an education system or a re-education system. And I think that if we're not alone in the universe, and of course I don't believe that we are, that, it's time to have that conversation. It's time for us to grow up
Absolutely.
on Earth and, look at it and say, what, is there anything to all of these things that people are talking about, like being lifted off of Earth? Either we're going to, and I talked about this in my new book, It's Weird, it's coming up.
Yes.
Yeah, either we're going to have a Star Trek future or an apocalyptic future.
There's not going to be a lot of leeway.
That's right.
It seems.
That's right. And so, what's interesting is I think that we are being educated about our place in the universe, the fact that we really are a part of a galactic community, whether or not it has been hidden from us or not is another matter. But, that is something that I think the extraterrestrials may be slowly preparing us for. Maybe it's too shocking for people all at one time to learn that there are extraterrestrials out there, advanced beings that are, millennia ahead of us in their technology. So maybe slowly they've been, feeding us information. Now, one of the ways that it is thought that they're doing this is through our media and through our science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I talk about in my new Moon book, which is designed to go deeper than the Moon Mysteries book, and so we can have that conversation of who might be on the moon. So one of the things I talk about is a person named Gene Roddenberry.
Yes.
Gene Roddenberry is
Downloads
the creator
everywhere.
of Star, right?
Yep.
So it is believed. Well, so Gene Roddenberry, I don't know if you know this about him. It wasn't well known 20 years ago. I had read it, but it's out there now. So he was basically sitting in on channeling sessions with a woman who channeled extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And he became interested, and it is believed that that is where Star Trek was inspired from. These extraterrestrials said that they were on a ship near Earth, and they had been traveling the universe or the galaxy. And, they were there to help, and the ship was made up of people from different worlds. And so Gene Roddenberry, it is thought, began this system of education to the idea that we're not alone in the universe. And he used Star Trek to do that. Now, whether or not he was instructed to do that by these advanced beings, I don't know. But that is one of the ways it is thought that extraterrestrials today are trying to reach us to introduce us to this idea that we're not alone in the universe. So, so that was one thing that I found particularly fascinating, because that show alone has resonated within, people in around the world. And I think it really did open people's minds. So that may be, a catalyst for us, looking towards building our way towards a Star Trek spacefaring future, and also perhaps even, ways to save ourselves. For example, excuse me, we were talking about the hollow moon. There's a theory that the moon is hollow. We talked about the astronauts crash in the ascent stage into the moon and it reverberating, right?
Yes.
Well, guess what? Gene Roddenberry wrote a show. One of the shows for the 1960 series was called "For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky." It's one of my favorite episodes, and it's interesting that Gene Roddenberry not only might have been inspired to write Star Trek, but that I hear some of the scripts may have been an inspiration from what he was hearing. So in this episode, there is do you know it, Kat? Do you know this episode?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay. So there is an asteroid that is traveling across the universe, and the Star Trek crew is sent to intercept it because it is on a collision course for a Federation planet. So the Star Trek crew beams over to this asteroid, and the first thing they see when they land there are structures.
Yes.
Right? On the outside of this asteroid. And inside of the asteroid is a group of people. It is a civilization. It is a generational ship where there have been people living inside of this thing who were, I believe they were trying to escape some cataclysm on their planet, and they went inside the ship and they had traveled thousands of years across the universe. Some of them, well, all of them except I think the computer, didn't know that they were on a traveling ship. All right. So for me, that is very much like what we're hearing about the moon being hollow. I write in my book about it being possibly a generation ship, a home to a civilization that may have been trying to escape a cataclysm or a sun blowing up or something. But I find it interesting that Gene Roddenberry had this idea years ago, before the spaceship moon theory, was out there. And so I just wonder if he had some inside information as to, what is going on out there. And if the moon, for example, may be hollow. And I wonder what else we're seeing in science fiction that is really real, maybe real life, that we just need to sit up and pay attention to.
Well, it would be foolish not to give some consideration to these ideas. And think tanks do. People around the planet do pay attention to this. You and I were talking about various quotes that were out there. And, if you've been in space, then you know that there are things, I've always thought it was interesting that the mindset is that, the things that we didn't know kind of a thing. That as you bring out in your writing, there's so many things that are out there that we just don't know. But they have was that saying that, everything old is new again? People were talking about this.
Yep.
We're talking the 1960s, the 1970s, late 70s, maybe not really even going into the 80s. And then when we got to later episodes, Next Generation level type things, then it's picked back up strongly. But this was being talked about when it was not a thing. When the climate change was not really something people were discussing a whole lot. And then now we have had cataclysmic events on our planet. People always mock me when I say that I feel like Fukushima is an extinction level event. And they're like, oh, no, no. And I'm like, we can't contain it. And, now they have amoeba type single cell organisms that are in there eating the radiation. Nobody knew that would happen.
Mm.
Nobody knows what they are, right? They just showed up and started eating this radiation. So that's a coincidence, right? No, there are no coincidences. But I do need to let people know that you are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. And we have to take a break, dadgummit. But this will not be long. We will be right back. Y'all come back too.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the World Wide Web of Weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Okay.
Welcome back. I'm so glad that you are here, and I am so glad to be here with Constance Briggs. Constance, I am not going to do a lot of chatting here. We had things that we wanted to get back to, and we've got time now to do that. You had said that you wanted to go back and address where we were.
Okay. I'm trying to remember exactly now where we left off. Wow.
Funny how getting that. Sorry, put you on the spot, didn't I? I didn't mean to, but we were talking about the we were talking about the airlifts. We were talking about the
being rotted.
Yeah, people being concerned for what the heck we've done to ourselves.
too.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to switch gears here a little bit because we started talking during the break. I lost my thought. Okay,
that's fine.
So I wanted to I was saying how Gene Roddenberry, his work was, a catalyst to educating us if we ever, want to move into a Star Trek future. I guess the question would be, why, is it taking so long? And one of the reasons is that, we keep hearing about our disclosure and that, things are being kept from us. But I wonder if really it's... Sorry?
I think that we've already had disclosure. Project Blue Book, as an example, came back with over was it over 600 or over 8? I think it's over 600 uncleared cases. There were that many, it may have been 800, 600 or 800, that of those cases could not be explained, which means they were true UFO cases. That was disclosure.
I believe that we have had disclosure too. Now, I believe, for me, those sort of, those stories are true to me. That's enough disclosure. I personally have moved past it. Mm-hmm. I've moved past the idea for contact. I think we've had it. All right. But what I'm saying is, for the masses, for the people, I'm on Facebook all the time, and they're talking about disclosure. We need disclosure. Yes. You and I feel like we've had it, but plenty of people don't think so. So they're talking about, on a mass scale, some sort of presentation given to us by the government of, the fact that we're not alone. So I think that the extraterrestrials, I was going to say, may be actually controlling that for it happening on a mass scale where there is an announcement, because they do not feel that we're ready because of the warring that you were talking about earlier. They may be worried about, just us not being ready, because we are still a kind of primitive acting, warring, species here, and that they're waiting and they're preparing. There was a Israeli general, I believe it was, a couple of years ago, that came out with a book, and he just really, I heard from the mainstream media, which I never hear anything like this. It blew me away. I had to stop in my kitchen and turn and face the news and kind of go, oh my God, they just outed the Galactic Federation. So he said, this general, who is educated and at retirement, he's rich, he's, had all of the accolades and, all the awards, anything he needed. He wrote a book, and he said that there are people on the moon that have been working with extraterrestrials, and the extraterrestrials said that on Earth we can't know yet because we're not ready. So my point is, when I hear about people talking about we need some kind of disclosure to the masses, and they're mad at the government for not saying more, I'm wondering sometimes if it's not the government, but it's the extraterrestrials who are controlling when exactly we're all supposed to get that, big reveal, because they're thinking we're not ready. And the other thing that may be going on, I'll talk about this in my next book, is that we may be, kind of like a quarantine planet, in the sense that we're just new to it all. And they're watching and they're waiting.
Kind of like the Prime Directive thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are beings, I believe that there are, my personal belief is that they're here and they're living among us and they're observing us and they're helping us and they are working with people, and that there are some people's guides even.
Right.
All right. That there are people who are here on a mission to help with this work of educating the masses slowly and getting information out. But, I that's my personal belief, they're already here. But for and I call them the ground troops. They come in to help prepare for that big reveal. There are going to be people who are not ready because due to their religious ideas or whatever. When the Apollo astronauts were ready to go up, NASA didn't know really what to do if they did have the idea that they might run into someone out there.
Absolutely.
NASA had commissioned like 3 reports on the topic. They've got one that I constantly talk about in shows called the Lunar Technical Report, where they had all of the information from astronomers for 100 years back and what they had seen in observing the moon. So they knew there was something going on up there. So they were like, okay, what are we going to do if the astronauts see something? So they commissioned a report called the Brookings Report, and the Brookings Report stated that basically we shouldn't tell the masses because it would be chaos here. And I think that they're still, operating from that. When I look at the ISS, there are reports that UFOs have been seen near the ISS, but nobody's talking about it really. I mean, they've
been
got
seen
light
docked
beams.
to it. There have been craft seen. There have been craft seen docked to it. I mean, there have been reports of craft docking on the ISS.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just think that's something that makes you go, well, and of course in this day and age of CGI, is that true? I've seen some of the imagery.
Right.
And
CGI makes it really hard.
It makes everything difficult, which is what I think it's designed to do.
Yeah.
But, you're not sure what you can trust, even if you see it. So,
if you see some video though from, back from, the 60s and 70s, it's very interesting sometimes to look at that from some of the videos that have gotten through. You can see, there are things on those from NASA. You can see, or secret agencies. Some whistleblowers have leaked videos of aliens.
Yes.
Extraterrestrials.
Yes.
I don't believe that way back when they had, that means to fake it. So I trust those more than
I do too.
than I do some of the ones today. But I wanted to get to the idea that 2 things, that the moon is an inhabited alien world. So if we're going up there and there is a civilization, we need to think about, what's going on, because, it could be a foreign country on its own. It could have a whole civilization up there of beings that, that is their world and not ours. And, I think that is something that for future space travel, I think that should be seriously looked into. And when I look at things like with the Artemis mission going up, I don't hear anything about, what happened with the Apollo missions. It's right in their transcripts, things they saw. There are pictures right from the astronauts that, a lot of things, people say, that, they were destroyed, they didn't get through, NASA lost pictures. Well, I have to tell you, a lot of them did get through. I have numbers in both of my books of pictures that you can just Google and see ships and lights and astronauts, blue lights. There's a story, one of my favorite stories is a couple of the missions went up there, and there were these blue lights that they took pictures of. They looked like little probes around the astronauts while they were working. Okay, those things got through. Someone sent them. So when I think about space travel and Artemis, I'm thinking, I don't hear anyone talking about that stuff. I don't hear anyone talking about.
There's not any discussion of that. No,
yeah,
because
it could be inhabited. There are reports of domes. The astronauts talked about lighted domes. They were looking down and seeing lighted domes.
Yes.
All right? That would mean that there's energy coming from inside the moon. What if the moon is inhabited? Not only that, but what I find interesting is it looks like Mars's two moons may be hollow. And there's talk of, parts of the Earth being hollow. And you just wonder, is this a thing? Is this a thing in our solar system or other parts of the galaxy where there are beings that live inside of planets? And that's why we're not detecting them when we're sending over probes. We're not seeing anything. Or could that have something to do, and I don't know anything about, radio signals, but could that be a thing, and why we don't pick up more radio signals because they're inside? I don't know. Don't make me fun of me. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know anything about radio signals, but I wonder, is it because they are inside a planet? And it has been said that on Earth we are living inside out. That probably we should be living inside the Earth to avoid, things like, meteors and radiation. And, we are protected. We are a protected planet, it appears, because we're still here for now. Someone's protecting us, and our science is protecting us, but there's also belief that they're extraterrestrials that are moving things away from Earth all the time. That is hidden from us. Mm-hmm.
What was fascinating to me was when, oh help me, I can't remember the name of this asteroid, the monster long that they think might have been a craft. And the U.S. government actually said that may have been a spacecraft, but,
Obama, what do you call it? Obama bomb? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Oahu? I don't remember. I do not remember. I will Google that during the break. But, people actually said that could have been a craft. They did not hesitate to say that came from deep space. They did not hesitate to say, that we had stuff looking at it. We didn't approach it. And I found that interesting. We did send probes out to blast the other asteroid away from us. Did we do that?
Right.
And did we scramble to do that because of what had just gone through?
Right.
I mean,
right.
There is a lot that happens.
Yes. There's a lot that happens, and people don't know it. If I walked to my neighbor, next door, and said that, they would be like, what? What's you talking about? People do not know. And that's why we're having these conversations. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're writing these books, to get in people's hands, to get them talking. And for goodness sakes, what if something did happen? What if someone did land for first contact, and make an announcement, I mean, you want to know and not be in the dark. I don't know why more people, are not interested. But anyway, it's an education kind of thing going on.
There is.
So as far as the moon having an extraterrestrial connection to Earth, so, there are some tales. I can't get into it all in 10 minutes, which is what we have left, I think.
Well, we've got 15 minutes, but we do have to take our final break, which is very short. Let's do that and get that out of the way, and then it'll be all you. Hang on, and we will be right back. Y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And we are back for our final segment. If you have questions, this is the time to put them in chat, because this is your golden opportunity with Constance. But Constance, we were just talking during the break about, there's all this UFO activity around being reported around Ukraine, and I'm totally sure that we are catching the attention. Yet our magnetic field is supposed to be wiggy right now, and UFOs use our electrical field for lift. So, obviously, if you follow that logic, then what we're seeing now is either different craft, our craft, monitoring the lunacy that we are creating on each other, or just something else, right? I mean, because there's so many reports around that, the different things, the different conflicts, but primarily Ukraine, because there's a real threat of nuclear action. It's the comments have been made that will happen. So
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, to talk about extraterrestrial ships, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a technical person, so I don't know anything about, the lifting off and all of that. But I understand that we have, interdimensional ships that may be in. We have something on this planet we have called portals. Portals have been known to be on planet Earth. That's a whole other show. There are also USOs, which is not a whole other show. And we do not know what a craft may be capable of doing. There's more than one type of alien being, I believe, or extraterrestrial being visiting Earth. We don't know what they're capable of, or maneuvering through, or getting through. Some of them may be using it for liftoff, but what about the others?
Right,
I don't
portals, wormholes.
It's hard for me to speak to that. So I guess that's it for me for that one.
But I think it's so fascinating when you sit there and you think about, because nobody ever talks about all these different methods of traversing time in the universe. People have been working to find them here ostensibly forever, with limited success, if any. And yet, stuff happens. People just disappear off the face of the earth when they're in a crowd, or when they're, it happens. People never talk about that.
Nope. They don't talk about a lot of things, and there's a lot going on out there. And I tell you, I think we should be having what they used to call town hall meetings for some of this stuff. You know, someone that disappeared. You're not talking about it. Why? You saw a huge ship in the sky. Why aren't we talking about that? Even with the government talking about the UAPs.
Yes.
I don't hear anyone talking about it. You know, there was a man, I don't know, I don't watch late night TV, but there was one of these late night comedians with a show who interviewed President Obama. And he was asking Obama, the question about, are we alone? What do you know? And Obama wouldn't answer him. Basically, he says, I can't tell you. He says, okay, I'll take that as a, yes, we're not alone. He made a joke. No, we're not alone. The guy made a joke. But I saw him, and I don't know his name, but I saw him the other day, and he was saying, they're talking about UFOs. They're saying that they don't know where, UAPs, they don't know where these came from, but there could be, from outside of the planet, and nobody's talking about it. He said, how can nobody be talking about it? He's right.
He is right.
How in the world, with all this stuff going on, people aren't talking about it? I read the other day, I don't know if this number is correct or not, but I read that there have been 10,000 crop circles.
Yes, that would probably be a good estimate.
Since this thing started with the crop circles. And who talks about them? You know what when they come up, what I hear, it's a hoax. People are creating them. You're telling me that in, 50 countries? And I could be wrong about that, 50 countries they've been seen in, there are hoaxers. And so what happened is somewhere in the 70s, when this all started, people became aware of them, there were a couple of people who faked crop circles, and that took off. So now they think all of them were faked and hoaxes. I think not. And
I'm
I think
positive
that we should
not.
be talking about it. They're sending us messages. We should be talking about it, and we're not doing it.
They basically sent the disc that we sent out on that craft. I mean, one of the crop circles was basically sharing that information. There was one that was an alien face.
Right.
There's a young man in the Netherlands who knows when they are coming, and he has taken researchers, they're coming, they're going to do one. He takes the researchers, they go to a field, it starts to happen. And, one of my favorite researchers in that field, Nancy Talbot, who unfortunately suffered a very strong stroke, and has been out of the field, for a while, is who introduced me to Robert. And that's what, she was there interviewing him for her study. And he said, they're coming, we've got to go. Bada boom, bada bing. There's a crop circle happening as they watch it happen.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And people don't talk about it, like you said. I think it's a fear. I think people are absolutely terrified of anything they don't understand, so they mock it, ridicule the people that bring it, and that way they can go back to having their comfortable life.
Right.
And life is not going to be that comfortable with the changes that we're seeing. And, and none of this stuff, what people don't understand is none of this stuff rules out faith. It doesn't rule out a creator. It doesn't rule out anything other than the fact that we're not the only creation.
Right.
Even on our planet, different cultures have different creation stories, but they are all creation stories. And, that I think that people are just scared. And they don't know, the unknown is terrifying for so many people. They just don't talk.
Well, you know what?
Just don't talk.
If we just if we just educated people. See, part of the reason they're afraid is because they never heard of such a thing. All right? For example, let's just take ghosts, for example, all right? All right, so people, a lot of people don't believe in ghosts until they see it. You and I know that, for lack of a better word, because we get into the whole ghost thing, that they exist. I've had experiences. But that's because no one ever told them that, there's an unseen world and people exist there, people live there. If we were educated about that, if we were told that we're not the only ones in the universe, then people are seeing ships. If we were taught, then we wouldn't be so shocked. It just seems that we need some sort of education system on this whole thing, or people would not be so afraid.
Exactly.
But it looks like it's
fear makes people easy to control, though.
Right. Yeah.
And the government's in the business of control. All of them. Can you really believe that any of the people running government have any better clue than you do about what to do? No. I don't. They just have better PR and lots of money that gets them elected because they've got friends that want them there. It's just, they're still people. They still, put their pants on one leg at a time, or, get upset tummies and, make embarrassing noises, all that stuff. But they're still people, yet they think that they are equipped to rule everyone else. So, it takes a very big ego to be in politics. And I think there are a lot of people that go there for the right reasons, what we would consider the right reasons. And it's such a struggle, I think, to stay true to your ideals when there's so much that can distract you from that. So we've got to get past the thought of government being the great informer about these matters and find a way with people like you that are doing the work and putting the research in. And I have to tell you, your information and your research is really good. And those are, they're basically primers that people can use. There's so many people that are putting this information out, and, it's about time people paid attention to information and quit paying attention to disinformation. This is information. What you're putting out is information. And people like you, thank God for you.
Aww.
It needs to be said. It needs to be shared. So, thank you for doing that. And I know that people look at this as being a fringe topic. It is not. This is affecting every single human on this planet right now. It's relevant. Thank you for being willing to step up there and put that information out, and come heck or high water, it's out there. You did a good job.
That's really lovely. So nice for you to say thank you. The same to you, by the way. The same to you.
Thank you. I didn't write the book. I just bring the people that did. But I do the research. I don't give a platform to just anybody that, that has a book to sell. This is an important topic. This is a relevant topic to our world. And our government is finally talking about it. Maybe it's time to start listening to the people who have been talking about it.
I hope they do.
I think they are. I think it's a happening thing, and thank you for being part of that movement. And in chat, we've got great show and interesting information. See? Information.
Wow.
Told you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
That's nice. Thank you.
I tell you, we are into our last minute. What is one thing that you want people to take from this conversation?
Do the research. Read the books. This is something I'm trying to quote, by the way, Edgar Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for the quote. It's not in front of me. But Edgar Mitchell said to, take a look. So he was one of the Apollo astronauts.
Yes.
And very wise man. And he basically said that we should, read the books and do the research and pay attention because there's a lot for us to learn. We're not alone in this universe, and we need to know what's going on. So basically, that's it for me.
Well, that is a great way to go because that man was brilliant.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. It really makes you think. Read the books, do the research, find out for yourselves. And hold a conversation and have those town hall meetings.
Get out there and talk to somebody. There you go. So everyone listening, thank you so much. I know that y'all will have enjoyed this show. I know some of y'all are probably scratching your head going, what the hey? Well, you know what?
Right.
Read the book. Read a lot of books. There's so many people putting this information out. And even our government can't hide it anymore. They're being forced into acknowledgement. There's a reason they're acknowledging it. Because it's happening. So, because they didn't want to. So, we'll see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Catch me on Paranormal Experienced on Wednesday. We're going to have a great show. And mainly, don't forget, if you don't like the world you're living in, you can fix that. You can manifest the energy that makes everything just smoother, right? Be the change you want to see. Life is so short, and you think you've got time. You have no idea what time you have. None of us do. And just make the best of every day. Be the person you would like to have as a friend. That's all you have to do. Just be the change. Thank you for listening. I appreciate every single one of you. And I hope that you are blessed through your week. Take care. Good night.